The stars looked different from the observation deck of the U's Harmony. Ambassador Park Daeho stood alone, his hands clasped behind his back, watching the endless darkness pass by. He was 63 years old. His hair had turned gray long ago. His face carried the lines of a man who had seen too many wars and worked too hard to prevent more. Tomorrow, he would meet the rulers of the Valoran Dominion. Tomorrow, he would try to secure humanity's place among the stars. The door behind him opened. Kim Nari walked in, carrying 2 cups of tea. She was young, barely 30, but Daeho had chosen her personally as his aide. She was sharp, patient, and she understood something most diplomats never learned. Sometimes silence spoke louder than words. "You should sleep," she said, handing him a cup. Daeho smiled. "I have slept enough in my life." "These moments, Nari, these quiet moments before everything changes, they are precious." She stood beside him, looking at the stars. "Do you think they will accept us?" "The Valorans have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years, Daeho said slowly. "They have seen species rise and fall like waves on a shore. To them, we are children. Noisy, strange children who appeared from a small blue planet and started spreading across their stars." "That does not answer my question." Daeho laughed softly. "No, it does not. The truth is, I do not know. But I know that we must try. War with the Dominion would destroy us. Peace would save us. So we try." The Harmony dropped out of slipspace 3 hours later. Valoran Prime filled the view screen, a massive world covered in silver cities and artificial clouds. Thousands of ships moved around it like insects around a hive. The Dominion's power was visible in every direction. Daeho's team gathered in the shuttle bay. There was Yuntesu, the cultural liaison, a nervous man who had memorized every Valoran custom. There was Choibora, the security chief, a woman with cold eyes and steady hands. And there was Nari, standing at Daeho's side as always. Remember, Daeho said to them, "We are guests here. We smile. We bow. We do not react to insults. Our pride is less important than our mission." They descended to the planet's surface. The Valoran Senate was a building of impossible size. Its walls stretched upward until they disappeared into artificial clouds. Thousands of Valoran officials moved through its halls, tall beings with pale skin and dark eyes. They looked at the humans with expressions that ranged from curiosity to disgust. A Valoran guide led them to their quarters. The rooms were beautiful but cold. Everything was designed to remind visitors that they were small, significant, temporary. That night, Daeho could not sleep. He sat by the window, watching the alien city below. Somewhere in this building, leaders of an empire were deciding humanity's fate. The negotiations began the next morning. High Overseer Melric Voth sat at the center of the Senate chamber. Surrounded by hundreds of senators, he was ancient even by Valoran standards, his face like carved stone, his eyes burning with cold intelligence. "You come seeking trade," Voth said. His voice echoed through the chamber. "You come seeking alliance. Tell me, Ambassador, what does your species offer that we do not already possess?" Daeho bowed respectfully. "We offer friendship. High Overseer. We offer the labor of 8 billion hands. We offer new ideas, new perspectives, new possibilities. Ideas." Voth made the word sound like an insult. "Your species has existed for a mere moment. You have achieved nothing of value. You spread across the stars like a disease, claiming worlds that do not belong to you." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the Senate. Daeho kept his expression calm. Every great species was young once, High Overseer. The Valorans themselves were newcomers to the stars 10,000 years ago. "We ask only for the chance to prove ourselves." The negotiations continued for 3 weeks. Every day brought new insults, new obstacles, new tests. Senators mocked humanity's technology, their culture, their appearance. They called humans short-lived creatures and primitive animals. Daeho endured it all. He smiled when they laughed at him. He bowed when they dismissed him. Slowly, carefully, he began to win over the moderate factions. Some senators started to see value in trade with Earth. Some began to respect the quiet strength of this old human who refused to break. On the final day, a historic trade agreement was prepared. It was not perfect. It favored the Dominion heavily. But it was a beginning. It was peace. Deho stood before the Senate to sign the document. This agreement, he said, represents the first step in a long journey. Today, humans and Valorans choose cooperation over conflict. Today we choose hope. He reached for the document. High Overseer Melric Voth raised his hand. There will be no agreement, he said coldly. The chamber fell silent. Voth stood from his seat, his eyes fixed on Deho. Your species has forgotten its place. You come to our world, our Senate, and you speak as if you are our equals. You are not. You are insects. And insects must be reminded of their insignificance. He pulled a weapon from his robes. Nari screamed. Bora reached for her sidearm. Tesu stood frozen in shock. The blast hit Deho in the chest. He stumbled backward, his eyes wide with surprise. Blood spread across his white diplomatic robes. He fell. The Senate erupted in chaos. Dominion guards seized the human delegation. Nari fought against them, tears streaming down her face. But she could not break free. Voth stood over Deho's body, his weapon still smoking. He looked directly at the cameras that broadcast the scene across the galaxy. Let this be a lesson to all lesser species, he declared. The Dominion does not negotiate. The Dominion rules. Those who forget this truth will share this creature's fate. Nari managed to activate her emergency transmitter before the guards took it. The footage of Deho's murder, every second of it, was sent racing toward Earth at the speed of light. Ambassador Park Deho died on the cold floor of an alien Senate. Far from the world he had spent his life protecting, he had come offering peace. The Dominion had answered with murder, and across the stars, 8 billion humans were about to learn what their empire had done. The transmission reached Earth at 0347 hours. Universal Time. A young communications officer named Beek Jasu was the first human on Earth to see it. She sat alone in the night shift of the Global Communications Center, drinking cold coffee and fighting sleep. When the priority signal appeared on her screen, she expected routine diplomatic updates instead. She watched Ambassador Park Deho die, her coffee cup shattered on the floor. Her hands shook as she forwarded the transmission to her superiors. Within minutes, the footage was climbing the chain of command. Within hours, it reached President Beek Murray. The president watched the video alone in her office. She watched it 3 times. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands gripped the edge of her desk so hard that her knuckles turned white. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet. Wake everyone. Every general. Every admiral. Every world leader. We meet in 1 hour. The emergency council gathered in the Great Hall of the United Earth Coalition. Leaders from every nation sat together, their old rivalries forgotten. They had all seen the footage. They had all watched Deho fall. President Beek Murray stood at the center of the hall. For 200 years, she began, we have reached toward the stars with open hands. We have sought trade, friendship, peace. We have believed that the galaxy would welcome us if we showed them we meant no harm. She paused, her eyes moving across the faces before her. Ambassador Park Deho believed this more than anyone. He dedicated his life to peace. He traveled across the galaxy to offer friendship to the Valoran Dominion. And they murdered him. They broadcast his death as entertainment. They called us insects. The hall was completely silent. I am tired of extending our hands only to have them slapped away. I am tired of smiling while aliens spit on our dignity. I am tired of hoping that the galaxy will one day respect us. Her voice grew harder. The Dominion believes we are weak because we sought peace. They believe mercy is the same as cowardice. They look at humanity and see prey. She straightened her shoulders. They are wrong. They have made a terrible mistake, and we will teach them the price of that mistake. She turned to Admiral Shin Junho, a quiet man who sat in the front row. He had never lost a battle in 30 years of service. His eyes were calm, but something cold burned behind them. Admiral, the president said, You have full authority over military operations. Do what must be done." Junho stood and bowed. "It will be done, Madam President." The galaxy expected humanity to mourn. They expected panic, fear, desperate attempts at negotiation. Dominion analysts predicted that humans would beg for peace within days. They did not understand humanity at all, across Earth. Something strange happened. The grief transformed into something else. Factory workers returned to their stations with new fire in their eyes. Scientists worked through the night without rest. Soldiers volunteered faster than the military could process them. Old enemies shook hands. Old wounds healed overnight. Every human, from the richest to the poorest, from the oldest to the youngest, felt the same cold fury burning in their chest. The Dominion had not just killed a man, they had united a species. Admiral Shin Junho established his headquarters in an underground bunker beneath the mountains of Korea. Maps covered every wall, showing Dominion space in terrifying detail. 40,000 enemy warships, 3,000 star systems, 10,000 years of military experience. Against this, humanity had 800 vessels and 2 centuries of space travel. Any rational analysis said that humanity would lose. The numbers were impossible. The technology gap was enormous. The Dominion had crushed hundreds of species before. Jono looked at the maps and smiled. "They are counting our ships," he said to his staff. "They are measuring our technology. They are calculating our resources." He tapped the map showing Earth. "They have forgotten to count our anger," began issuing orders. Intelligence Director Ohana received the most unusual assignment. She was a small woman with a gentle face, the kind of person you would forget the moment she left the room. This made her perfect for her job. "We have thousands of humans scattered across Dominion space," Junho told her. "Traders, workers, travelers. They were invisible before. Now they become weapons." Hannah nodded. "Sabotage networks. Everything. Supply lines, communications, infrastructure. I want the Dominion to feel like their empire is haunted." Within weeks, strange things began happening across Dominion space. Supply ships disappeared. Communication satellites failed. Military bases suffered mysterious accidents. Dominion commanders received orders that contradicted each other. Orders that came from sources they could not identify. The Valorans blamed equipment failures. They blamed incompetent officers. They never suspected that the insects they had dismissed were crawling through their empire, destroying it from within. Meanwhile, in hidden shipyards scattered through asteroid fields, humanity revealed its true nature. Other species built ships for efficiency. They built for longevity, for resource conservation, for defense. Their vessels were elegant and practical. Human ships were different. Human ships were built by a species that had invented nuclear weapons and then pointed them at itself. Human ships were built by creatures who had survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. Human ships were not designed to last forever. Human ships were designed to kill. They ran hot. They burned through fuel at terrifying rates. Their reactors operated at levels that other species considered suicidal. Their weapons were oversized, overpowered, and utterly devastating. For 2 centuries, humanity had hidden these weapons. They had hoped never to use them. They had told themselves that peace was always possible. The Dominion had just proven them wrong. Admiral Junho stood before the fleet commanders, their faces glowing in the light of holographic displays. "The Dominion expects us to defend," he said. "They expect us to build walls around our little worlds and wait for their attack. They believe this is what weak species do." He smiled coldly. "We will not defend. We will attack. We will hit them where they feel safest. We will burn their arrogance to ash." The commanders saluted in the darkness of space. Humanity's war machine began to move, and in a prison cell on Valoran Prime, Kim Nari sat alone, thinking of her dead mentor, waiting for the storm she knew was coming. The Dominion Defense Command detected the anomaly at 0600 hours, Valoran time. 200 energy signatures appeared in the space above their homeworld. For a moment, The officers stared at their screens in confusion. Nothing was scheduled. No fleet was expected. The readings made no sense. Then the human ships dropped out of slipspace. And confusion turned to terror. Admiral Shin Jun-ho stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching Valoran Prime grow larger on the view screen. Around him, 200 human warships took formation, their weapons charging, their crews ready. All ships, Jun-ho said calmly. Begin Operation Black Dawn. The Dominion had 3,000 warships defending their homeworld. They had orbital defense platforms, planetary shields, and 10,000 years of military tradition. They had never lost a battle in their own system. None of this mattered. The human fleet hit them like a hammer. Captain Han Yunji commanded the destroyer Vengeance, leading the first wave of attack. She was 41 years old, a veteran of a dozen battles, and she had watched the footage of Ambassador Daeho's death 17 times. All forward batteries. Fire, she ordered. The Vengeance unleashed a storm of plasma and missiles. Dominion defense platforms exploded. Enemy fighters scattered in panic. The first wave of human ships carved a bloody path through the Dominion's outer defenses. Dominion commanders scrambled to respond. They had trained for defensive battles. They had practiced against cautious enemies who valued survival. They had never faced an enemy that attacked with such complete disregard for its own safety. Human ships pushed their engines past every safety limit. They took damage that would have forced other species to retreat. They kept coming. Enemy vessel approaching our port side, a Dominion captain reported. They are not slowing down. They are not changing course. They are the human destroyer rammed directly into the Dominion cruiser. Both ships vanishing in a sphere of nuclear fire. Across the battle, similar scenes played out. Human pilots executed maneuvers that should have been impossible. Human gunners hit targets with terrifying accuracy. Human engineers kept damaged ships running through sheer determination. The Vengeance took 17 direct hits during the battle. Her shields failed after the 5th. Her armor melted under the 10th. By the 17th, she was burning from bow to stern, half her crew dead. Her weapons barely functioning. Captain Han Yunji looked at the tactical display. The Dominion flagship sat in the center of their formation, protected by dozens of escort vessels. It was the command ship. Its destruction would throw the entire defense fleet into chaos. Navigation, Yunji said quietly. Plot a collision course with the flagship. Her first officer, a young man named Seo Dong-yoon, looked at her with wide eyes. Captain, our weapons are still partially operational. We can still fight, and they will destroy us in minutes. Yunji shook her head. We can die slowly, or we can die usefully. I choose usefully. She activated the ship-wide communication system. Attention all hands. This is the captain. We are about to ram the enemy flagship. Anyone who wishes to evacuate has 2 minutes to reach the escape pods. No one will think less of you. She paused. But I am staying. This is what we came here to do. Silence filled the bridge. Then Dong-yoon returned to his station. Navigation set, Captain. One by one, every officer on the bridge confirmed their positions. Not a single person moved toward the escape pods. Eng smiled. It has been an honor serving with you all. The Vengeance accelerated toward the Dominion flagship. Enemy weapons hammered her hull. Sections of the ship tore away into space. Fires raged through every deck, but she did not stop. The Dominion flagship tried to evade, but it was too large, too slow. Its captain watched the burning human vessel approaching and realized, in his final moment, that he had underestimated humanity. The Vengeance struck the flagship at full speed. Her reactor pushed beyond its limits, detonated on impact. The explosion was visible from the planet's surface. The Dominion fleet lost its command structure in an instant. Orders became confused. Formations collapsed. Ships that had fought as a unified force began acting independently, making mistakes. Admiral Jun-ho pressed the advantage. All ships forward. Do not let them recover. The battle lasted 9 hours. 9 hours of fire and death and destruction. 9 hours of human fury unleashed against an enemy that had believed itself invincible. 9 hours that changed the galaxy forever. When it ended, the Dominion's home defense fleet was gone. 3,000 warships reduced to debris. Orbital platforms destroyed. Military infrastructure in ruins. Humanity had lost 106 ships. 106 crews who had known they might not survive. 106 vessels whose captains had given everything for victory. Admiral Junho ordered a moment of silence for the fallen. Then he turned to his communications officer. Broadcast our message to the planet below. Let the Dominion hear it. Let the galaxy hear it. The message was simple. You killed our ambassador. You called us insects. You believed we would break. We did not break. We came to your homeworld, your capital, the heart of your empire, and we burned your fleet to nothing. This is not revenge. This is a lesson. The lesson is this: humanity does not forget. Humanity does not forgive. And humanity does not lose. The message spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. Species that had lived under Dominion rule for millennia heard it. Species that had been conquered, enslaved, and broken heard it. They heard that the impossible had happened. On Valoran Prime, High Overseer Malric Voth stood in his chambers, watching the debris of his fleet rain down through the atmosphere like falling stars. His hands trembled. His ancient heart pounded with an emotion he had not felt in centuries. Fear. He had ruled the galaxy through fear. He had crushed rebellions through terror. He had believed that no species would ever dare challenge the Dominion's might. He had been wrong. The humans were coming. Not to negotiate. Not to beg. Not to surrender. They were coming to burn his empire to the ground, and Malric Voth, for the first time in his long and terrible life, had no idea how to stop them. The war spread like fire through dry grass. Admiral Shin Junho did not rest after the Battle of Valoran Prime. He divided his remaining fleet into strike groups, each commanded by officers he had personally trained. They scattered across Dominion space like wolves hunting wounded prey. Commander Liwansik led the Liberation Fleet. He was a tall man with a scarred face, a veteran of Earth's last great civil war. He had seen what occupation looked like. He had felt the weight of an enemy boot on his people's neck. Now, he brought freedom to others. His first target was Koroth Station, a mining colony where 3 alien species lived as slaves. The Korothi, the Venari, and the Selek had served the Dominion for 800 years. They had forgotten what freedom felt like. Wansek's fleet destroyed the Dominion garrison in 2 hours. Then he landed his Marines. The slaves watched the human soldiers approach with confusion and terror. They expected new masters. They expected the cycle of oppression to continue. Wansek removed his helmet. "We are not here to conquer you," he said. "We are here to arm you, train you, and then leave you to fight for your own freedom." Within a week, 3 species that had been broken for centuries held weapons in their hands. They learned human tactics. They learned human determination. And when Wansek's fleet moved on, they rose against their oppressors with fury that had been building for 800 years. This scene repeated across the galaxy, everywhere human forces went. They left behind newly armed rebels, newly trained fighters, newly ignited fires of resistance. The Dominion found themselves fighting not just humanity, but dozens of species who had been waiting for this moment. On the prison moon of Velkath, Kimnari organized her own revolution. She had been held in isolation since Ambassador Deho's death. The Dominion wanted to break her, to turn her into a symbol of human weakness. They starved her. They interrogated her. They told her that Earth had surrendered, that her people had abandoned her. She did not believe them. "The Admiral will come," she told her captors. "And when he does, you will wish you had treated me better." The guards laughed at her. They stopped laughing when she killed 3 of them with a sharpened piece of metal and freed herself from her cell. The prison held 2,000 inmates from a dozen species. Nari united them. She planned their uprising with the same careful patience that Deho had taught her. When the moment came, the prisoners seized control of the entire facility in 6 hours. When Admiral Junho's rescue fleet arrived, they found Nari standing in the warden's office. Covered in blood that was not her own, Ambassador Junho said. Using the title she had not yet earned, Nari shook her head. I am not an ambassador yet. I am still just a student. But I am ready to learn the next lesson. Meanwhile, in the darkness between stars, Lieutenant Kong Soyan hunted. She commanded a squadron of 12 stealth fighters. Small vessels, designed to be invisible until the moment they struck. The Dominion called her the Ghost. Her pilots called her Unni, older sister. Right. Because she protected them with fierce determination. Soyan had lost her younger brother in the massacre at the Senate. He had been part of the security team, just 23 years old, fresh from the academy. He had dreamed of exploring the stars. Now, Soyan explored the stars for him. She explored them with plasma cannons and nuclear missiles. Her squadron, the Silent Knives, specialized in one thing: killing Dominion capital ships. They would slip past defensive formations, find gaps in shield coverage, and strike reactor cores with surgical precision. 47 Dominion vessels fell to the Silent Knives in 6 months. 47 crews who never saw death coming. After each kill, Soyan would sit alone in her cockpit and whisper her brother's name. Then, she would begin hunting again. The Dominion tried to adapt. They sent their best admirals against the human fleet. They developed new tactics, new weapons, new strategies. They fought with all the experience of 10,000 years. It was not enough. Human soldiers refused to surrender, not even when surrounded. Human pilots executed attack runs that should have been suicide, and sometimes were. Human officers studied every battle, learned from every mistake, and came back stronger on occupied worlds. Captured humans became legends. A Marine sergeant named Keo Guan was captured during a failed rescue mission. The Dominion tortured him for 3 weeks, trying to extract military secrets. He gave them nothing but silence and cold smiles. On the 22nd day, his captors asked why he did not break. Because I know something you do not, Guan said through broken teeth. Every moment you waste on me, my people, are winning. Every day I stay silent, more of your ships burn. I am not afraid to die. I am afraid of nothing. Can you say the same? His captors could not answer. Stories like this spread across the galaxy. Species that had feared the Dominion for millennia began to see a new truth. The Dominion was not invincible. They could be fought. They could be hurt. They could be defeated. All it took was the will to try. High Overseer Melrick, Voth watched his empire crumble. Supply lines collapsed under sabotage. Colonies declared independence. Allied species broke their treaties and vanished. The military, once the most powerful force in the galaxy, was stretched thin across 1,000 fronts. His advisors begged him to negotiate. The humans will accept terms, they said. They must accept terms. They cannot sustain this war forever. Voth knew they were wrong. He had seen the footage from human worlds. He had seen their factories running day and night. He had seen their people volunteering by the millions. He had seen the look in human eyes, that terrible determination that nothing could break. The humans were not fighting for territory or resources. They were fighting for revenge, and revenge, Voth realized too late, was a fuel that never ran out. The moderate factions in the Dominion Senate grew stronger. They began to whisper about change. They began to plan for a future without Voth. The war was not over, but its ending was becoming clear. Humanity was winning. 18 months after the death of Ambassador Park Dae-ho, Admiral Shin Jun-ho returned to Valoran Prime. His fleet filled the space above the planet, a wall of steel and fire that blocked out the stars. The same world that had witnessed humanity's greatest humiliation now witnessed its greatest triumph. But this time, there was no battle. The Dominion Senate had overthrown High Overseer Melrick Voth 3 days earlier. The moderate factions, led by Senator Vela Karn, had finally gathered enough support to move against him. When Dominion soldiers came to arrest him, Voth had tried to fight. He killed 7 of them before they brought him down now. He knelt in chains on the steps of the Senate building. Waiting for the humans to claim him, Admiral Gunho descended from his shuttle in full dress uniform. His face showed no emotion as he walked toward the fallen tyrant. Behind him, an honor guard of human marines followed in perfect formation. Wath looked up at Junho with hatred burning in his ancient eyes. "You have won nothing," he hissed. "Another will rise. The Dominion will rebuild. Your species will pay for this insult." Gonho studied the creature who had ordered Daeho's death. He could have shot him there on those steps before the entire galaxy. He could have given humanity the satisfaction of immediate revenge. Instead, he shook his head. "You will face trial," Junho said quietly. "Not human justice. Galactic justice. Every species your empire has wronged will witness your judgment. Every crime will be counted. Every victim will be remembered." He gestured to his marines. "Take him." They dragged Voth away. He screamed threats and promises of vengeance until they silenced him. President Beak. Marae arrived on Valoran Prime 1 week later. She walked through the streets of the capital city. Surrounded by both human guards and Dominion senators who had sued for peace, the alien civilians watched her pass with a mixture of fear and curiosity. They had been taught that humans were primitive animals. They had been taught that humanity would bring destruction and chaos. Instead, this small human woman walked among them with calm dignity. The Senate chamber still bore scars from the war. Windows had been replaced. Walls had been repaired. But the floor where Ambassador Daeho had fallen remained untouched. A dark stain on the polished stone. President Beak Marae stood on that exact spot. The Senate was full. Hundreds of Dominion officials sat in their ancient seats, their faces uncertain. They did not know what to expect. They had prepared for demands of territory, wealth, perhaps even extinction. Marae looked at them for a long moment. 18 months ago, she began, Ambassador Park Daeho stood in this room. He came offering peace. He came offering friendship. He came offering a future where humans and Valorans could walk together among the stars. Her voice echoed through the silent chamber. "You answered him with murder. You broadcast his death as entertainment. You called us insects and expected us to accept our place beneath your feet." Several senators lowered their eyes in shame. "We have won this war. Your fleets are destroyed. Your colonies are independent. Your empire is broken." Marae paused. "We could demand anything. We could take your worlds. We could enslave your people. We could do to you everything you have, done to others for 10,000 years. Senators held their breath. "We will not." A murmur of confusion rippled through the chamber. "You taught us that the galaxy respects only power," Marae continued. "So we showed you power. But power without wisdom is tyranny, and tyranny always falls." She straightened her shoulders. "Humanity did not fight this war for revenge. We fought it for justice. And justice is not served by becoming the monsters we defeated." She pulled out a document, thin and simple. "This is the Valoran Accords. It demands no territory. It requires no tribute. It asks for one thing only: equality. A seat at every galactic table. Rights for every species under Dominion rule. An end to conquest. An end to slavery. An end to the belief that some lives matter more than others." She held the document toward the Senate. "Sign it, and we become partners. Refuse, and we will leave. We will not force this upon you. But know that the galaxy is watching. The species you once ruled are watching, and they will remember your choice." Senator Vela Karn rose slowly from her seat. She was old, nearly as old as Voth had been, but her eyes held something different. Not hatred, not fear. Something that looked almost like hope. She walked to President Beak Marae and bowed deeply in the human style. "On behalf of the Valoran Senate," Karn said, "we accept your terms. We accept equality. We accept the future." She signed the document. One by one, other senators followed. The Valoran Accords reshaped the galaxy in a single afternoon. 3 months later, Statue was erected in the Senate chamber. It stood on the spot where Ambassador Park Dae-ho had fallen. The figure was simple, a human man with kind eyes and open hands, reaching forward as if to embrace the universe. The plaque beneath it read, Park Dae-ho, Ambassador of Earth. He came offering peace. His sacrifice brought freedom. Kim Nari, appointed as humanity's first galactic ambassador, stood before the statue on the anniversary of his death. She wore the same white robes he had worn. She carried the same calm dignity he had shown. She placed flowers at the statue's base. "I finished what you started," she whispered. "The galaxy will remember you. I'll make sure of it." Behind her, the Senate chamber buzzed with activity. Delegates from 100 species discussed trade agreements, scientific cooperation, and cultural exchange. The Galactic Council, born from the ashes of the Dominion, was taking its first steps toward a new future. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through conquest, not through domination, but through the willingness to fight for what was right, the wisdom to show mercy when the fighting was done. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget. Humanity preferred peace. But when peace was murdered, humanity became war itself, and war humanity waged like no other, but in victory. They chose to be more than warriors. They chose to be builders of a better tomorrow. Ambassador Park Dae-ho would have been proud.